Government meets on speeding up investment disbursement. And later on, solutions for F&B industry in Vietnam to regain growth momentum. Hello there, you're tuning into BizLine on VTV International. I'm Hoàng Hằng, and as usual, we now take a look at some news making headlines in Vietnam's economic scene in the past week.
Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc chaired an online meeting between permanent government members and localities on Thursday to discuss speeding up public investment disbursement. At the meeting, he emphasized that the government and localities nationwide must take responsibility for dispersing public capital worth nearly $28 billion. He said that subjective and objective causes of delays in disbursement of investment and official development assistance should be identified. Heads of sectors and localities were asked to report to the Prime Minister about their tasks every 2 weeks and to resolutely punish those who avoid their responsibilities.
Also on Thursday, at a meeting with representatives of private enterprises of the Private Economic Development Research Board, Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc stressed that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the government will be doing its best to prevent businesses from going bankrupt. He said that businesses should focus on the domestic markets to support themselves and stabilize the economy. The Prime Minister emphasized that Vietnam's private economy is a very important driving force for the economy, so it's necessary to make an effort to bring the number of Vietnamese enterprises to 1 million soon.
The National Assembly's office has sent a letter to the press about the announcement of 8 resolutions of the 14th National Assembly, in which small and medium-sized enterprises and cooperatives will enjoy a favorable income tax cut of about 30% for the year. Enterprises that make no more than $8.6 million in revenue in 2020 will benefit from this incentive. This resolution will take effect from August the 3rd. The expansion of tax break beneficiaries would amplify the loss of the 2020 state budget collection, which is approximately $991 million. The reduction of corporate income tax is the next move of the party and the state to assist businesses in solving difficulties.
Vietnam could resume pre-COVID-19 growth levels by next year, although the pandemic has thrown a spanner in the works for the country's thriving economic growth story. Vietnam's success in containing COVID-19 pandemic and strength of the domestic consumer markets have combined to cushion the blow of COVID-19 on the economy. On the same day, an economist from Oxford Economics wrote in a report that Vietnam's economy will recover faster than regional peers and grow by 2.3% this year. FDI is expected to pick up in the second half, and with exports accounting for over 80% of Vietnam's GDP, the pace of recovery will rely on global trade momentum.
Despite many pauses and adjustments and a decline in revenue due to the COVID-19 pandemic, businesses in the food and beverage or F&B sector in Vietnam are preparing for long-term strategies. Because according to analysis of some experts, the F&B market in Vietnam is likely to recover sooner than other areas. However, in order to recover and achieve growth, businesses in this sector need to have effective strategies, especially capital management. In our BizLine this week, we'll discuss more about this. But first, let's take a look at the following report to see the potential of the Vietnam's F&B market, especially in Ho Chi Minh City.
A young and vibrant city with a population of 8.9 million. Alongside the growth of its millennial and Generation Z populations, Ho Chi Minh City is one of 3 cities in Asia that are expected to see the considerable growth in the F&B industry.
Thì cái ngành dịch vụ này ở Việt Nam mình chỉ là mới hội nhập so với những bạn bè quốc tế thôi. Và những bạn nước ngoài về Việt Nam thì sẽ cảm thấy là đây là một môi trường rộng mở. Những vị trí cao trong ngành F&B này thì 80% là người nước ngoài.
The emergence of foreign human resources has contributed to the professional development of the F&B industry in Vietnam.
It's not just expats coming in, it's that locals also taking the food to other extremes, really making street food really come well, so, Vietnam, it's a fantastic place, you've got to come and see, and it brings more and more people in.
According to Ho Chi Minh City Department of Industry and Trade, food and beverage currently account for Vietnamese people's largest proportions of monthly spending, up to 35%. The introductions of food and beverage products from around the world has made the F&B industry in Vietnam more vibrant and given consumers a wider variety of options.
Thank you, Mr. Justin and Mr. Taku, for joining our program today.
Can you tell us a little bit about the F&B situation in Vietnam, the development of the industry in the country, especially in big cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City?
I think there's a couple of important facts about the major cities. The young urban Vietnamese citizen is spending a little bit more in F&B now. A lot of the rise that we see in food and beverage is coming from that market. And if you look at the age demographics of who's spending money in food and beverage services throughout the country at the moment, it is the 25 to 34-year-old age group. They represent about 30% or just over 30% of all spenders and users of food and beverage restaurants and bars here. And what we see as well is that there's a projection of about 8% growth in food and beverage. And a lot of that's being driven by the implementation of online retail, combined with, because there's been no online retail here in Vietnam for quite some time. And then because of shopping centres and the development in Vietnam being quite high-paced, there's a lot more food and beverage services available for the Vietnamese people.
So as I know that the forecast for 2020 is about 44 million urban middle-class people in Vietnam, and the forecast will increase to 95 million in about 2030. So the middle class includes households that have daily consumption expenses ranging from 10 to $100 per person, and that would be like a reason that driven the growth and the continuing expansion of domestic and foreign investors in F&B. What do you think about it, Taku?
So basically, it's growing, right? But there is a lot of restaurants already, actually, right? So number of restaurants, I'm not sure if it's growing or not, right? So it's already bunch of restaurants. Like if you see like number of restaurants per like 1,000 population or something, it's like 6 per 1,000 people. It's already like really high level compared to Tokyo. It's the same. And like compared to Thailand, Thailand is just like 1.5 or something. Indonesia is even 1, right? So there's already many of restaurants. So a lot of people saying like, oh, I'm gonna open restaurant. But things like, like there are so many restaurants already, and there are so many good restaurants already. There is a lot of good choice, right? So of course the market is growing, but I'm not sure about like the number of restaurants is growing or not.
As it is, Vietnam is a developing country, so the opportunity also poses challenges, especially for large-scale businesses. Sure. If they expand or they escalate their capital's revenue, it also poses challenges. So what is the most important element in managing F&B business?
Well, first of all, F&B is a very high fixed cost model as a business. Yeah. Profit margins out of F&B are not typically high, which is why there needs to be turnover. And profit margins for major restaurants only hover between 15 and 20%. So how we manage our cost structures is very important, and that's why I referred to things like the lease structure, the terms of trading with suppliers, producers, partners. They're very, very important. Salaries are on the rise here in Vietnam. The government's doing a very good job to lift the wealth of the nation by raising the minimum wage by, on average, about 7% every year. So that's great for the Vietnamese people, but it means that all these fixed costs keep building. And when the consumer price point is not building at the same pace. So although salary structures and rental costs and fixed costs for businesses are going up significantly faster than the average spend increment year on year, balancing that's very, very important in the food and beverage space.
Thank you, Justin. So I think another element is that affecting F&B sectors in Vietnam is that consumer expectations and consumer consuming habit as well, is changing over time.
Yeah.
Last year and this year could be different, and especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, it has impact. And what are these, and how F&B would change, just to adapt into the changes of consumer. Tucker, what do you think?
No, like we still just finished, not finished yet, maybe the COVID, so we know everyone not sure. But one thing I think the people realize the fixed cost is high, right, for the restaurant business. So for sure, a lot of restaurants don't open new restaurant this year, and a lot of restaurants is thinking about like how we manage the fixed cost better, right? And so a lot of restaurants is trying to do like online, right? For example, delivery. But for the delivery concept itself is good. But if they utilize their existing asset, it's not really delivery because they pay in the land there, which is very high in the high street. So I think if they really want to do like the delivery as a restaurant, I think they have to think about it separately and having like a very low fixed cost location, not in a good street.
But I think what's key here is that the F&B space has always been an innovative space. You need to be relevant all the time.
Yep.
But what's going to be important now with COVID is because all of the investors make decisions based on seating capacity, ROI, and now, particularly with social distancing measures, seating capacity has to change. I might have a 100-seat restaurant yesterday, pre-COVID, and today that's now a 50-seat restaurant.
Right.
So the ability to generate turnover is certainly going to affect how we're going to do food and beverage or run our food and beverage establishments moving forward. Being innovative to look at alternate revenue streams is very relevant right now, and that's what we particularly look at.
Due to the negative impact of COVID-19, many F&B chains in Vietnam have had to close their stores to save on operating costs. Many businesses see the pandemic as a push to change their business strategies. Now many of them are no longer racing to open more big stores and instead are focusing on increasing online sales services to ensure revenue from multi-channels.
Chúng tôi phải giảm số lượng cửa hàng mở mới từ 100 cửa hàng xuống chỉ còn 30 đến 40 cửa hàng và mở mới những kênh mới, ví dụ như là kênh pick up, nghĩa là khách hàng đến lấy tại quán. Mục tiêu của mô hình này đó là tiết giảm thời gian khách hàng phải đợi lấy nước và thanh toán không tiền mặt. Theo tôi thì mô hình pick up sẽ là một trong những xu hướng trong tương lai của ngành F&B tại Việt Nam.
Trước đây thì Soagen tập trung vào các cái cửa hàng flagship lớn và rộng đẹp, nhưng mà khi mà cái Covid đến thì Soagen đã có một sự thay đổi, chuyển sang một cái mô hình nó hiệu quả hơn, kết hợp giữa không gian trải nghiệm và mô hình các cái cửa hàng nhỏ để tối ưu hóa về mặt chi phí cũng như là về mặt doanh thu và tập trung nhiều hơn vào cái mảng mà take away, tức là mua mang về, và delivery, tức là giao hàng.
Experts recommend that F&B chains also continue upgrading their indoor spaces and improving the quality of services at key stores to continue to improve the experiences of their customers.
Khi mà người ta phát triển quá nóng thì người ta phải chạy đua theo số lượng. Và khi chạy đua theo số lượng thì thường người ta cũng sẽ khó lòng làm tốt được cái việc về chất lượng và cái trải nghiệm người dùng. Và đây là cái thời điểm để người ta có thể quay trở lại chăm chút tốt hơn. Những cái hệ thống mà offline người ta đã có, những cái database khách hàng người ta đang có thì người ta sẽ chăm chút tốt hơn để nâng cao rất nhiều cái trải nghiệm người dùng mà trước đây người ta có thể là bỏ quên, có thể là biết nhưng mà người ta không ưu tiên thực hiện.
The market revenue of this sector in 2019 increased by 34.3% compared to 2018. However, whether this impressive growth can be maintained or not will depend mostly on the flexibility and creativity of businesses in developing new business strategies.
So I think a lot of people say that this time, especially this period, is not a good time to start a business, having a startup in F&B industry.
I disagree, actually.
I don't
I
think
disagree.
so.
Yeah,
I disagree.
disagree.
So.
Yeah.
It's a good time. If you
It's
have money,
it's
you
the
should
best
start
time.
the business. The best timing, I think.
It's the best time because you can get reduced rent now, very, very good rental deals on prime locations. The cost of entry would be lower just because nobody's doing a lot of business at the moment, so people are willing to provide services for a lower fee.
Yeah, and also a lot of talents in the market now, Like a lot of people unfortunately lose the job, but they are actually not the bad people, right? So some people with really good talent. So like a normal restaurant, it's very difficult to hire someone like an ex-manager of five-star hotel. It's very difficult to hire, but now they can hire.
If you go around the city,
Yeah.
Brian, and even in District 2 and District 7, there are so many restaurant bars that have already been there, established, but they're renovating, for example. They're taking the opportunity to maybe just change their concept slightly, to maybe get another segment of the business. It is a great time to be doing that and rethinking your business model, rethinking your concept. And as you rightly say, restaurants and bars that are targeting the local consumer will always win. And I think if you have the financial backing, as Taku suggested, now is certainly the time to do it, and you just wait.
What if to the small businesses, small startup that newly established, capital is very important. It's limited resources right now for them, and I believe the large proportion of their revenue is come from foreigners. But now, taking the situation, the border is still closed. How do they get the capital to renovate, as you said? So how to solve this problem?
Well, I think you're talking about two different things. I think you've got the segment of the food and beverage business that relies on tourism, and that's going to be in places like District 1. But in places like District 7 or the outer districts, they don't rely on tourism at all. It's all local F&B supply, feed. So, and I think that's what Taku is referring to. That's still a very successful business. You look at all the beer clubs right now, the barbecue restaurants, all of the food and beverage service supply that aims at the local market, they're doing exceptionally well. I was strolling down the main street the other day, and there's places that are right back at 80-85% capacity, which is great. And that also tells us another thing. It tells us that the local consumer wants to get back out and spend their money. They might not be spending it at the same volume, and they might not be going out 3-4 times a week like they were in the past, but the weekends, for example, are doing exceptionally well. Yeah.
Back to the fact of 2019 and beginning of 2020, a lot of big F&B chains, domestic and international F&B chains in Vietnam were closed. What is the reason behind that, and then would that discourage young people to start up in the F&B?
I think that one of the reasons, maybe if they go bankrupt right now, they're gonna say for sure it's because of COVID. But actually, the main reason is not actually COVID. I think, they already not doing great for a long time, and then COVID is one factor, to let them finally go, right? So I think still the problem is not COVID. I think because most of the big chain is not rely on the tourist, right? So a lot of a restaurant chain, actually their main target is still Vietnamese consumer. And I believe the Vietnamese consumer is kind of bounced back already, and the momentum for the young people to start in a new business in F&B scene, I don't think they check a bigger chain how they doing, because they are too big, right? So I think more if they have some friends around you, there is some successful business, or if he do that, great. Maybe I can do that or something like that. So it's more cross community is more the important for the sentiment for whether you start new business or not. I think, yeah, that's my opinion.
Well, I can give you an example for us. We've got 8 Marriott operating hotels in Vietnam. We've got something in the vicinity of between 20 and 25 restaurants and bars across those properties. Sure, we're in the tourism business, and for sure we rely on tourists, without a doubt. But the evening food and beverage spend is very different to the daytime food and beverage spend for us. The daytime food and beverage spend for us is about tourists. The evening food and beverage spend for us is about the local market. And we have a very simple philosophy in our Marriott properties for food and beverage specifically, and that is we want to go local. We want to make sure that our concepts and all of our efforts behind food and beverage spaces for evening spend, consumer, is about attracting the local market.
In Vietnam, coffee is an important commodity as it accounts for 3% of the country's GDP and has an export turnover of over $3 billion. Coffee is divided into two main types, Arabica coffee and Robusta coffee. Arabica is more valuable and accounts for 63% of all coffee products worldwide. Vietnam mainly exports Robusta coffee, which has a lower value. However, few people know that many places in Vietnam are combining Arabica coffee with traditional Vietnamese coffee brewing methods and have impressed not only Vietnamese people but also foreigners.
Sự khác biệt lớn nhất của nó là về hương vị. Nó nhiều hương hơn Robusta và nó ngọt hơn Robusta. Bên cạnh đó nữa là cái hàm lượng caffeine nó thấp hơn. Nó đến từ là giống cà phê, đến từ là vùng trồng cà phê, thổ nhưỡng mà nó là thổ nhưỡng. Sau đó đến từ cách rang cà phê và đến từ cách pha cà phê.
The way of processing it is what makes Arabica special. Arabica coffee berries are harvested, then fermented, then washed and dried during the final step. Because they are fermented, the taste of Arabica is slightly sour. Roasting them requires a specialized roasting device because it needs to be tight enough to keep the smell inside. Roasting equipment is usually round or cylindrical in order to facilitate even stirring and heat distribution within the time allowed. It needs to be strictly controlled in order to prevent over-roasting.
Đi cà phê mà thật sự đúng nghĩa gọi là ngon đối với mình đi, thì mình nghĩ là nó phải gắn liền với một cái giá trị văn hóa. Thì mình cũng đã đi nhiều nơi trên thế giới và mình đặt câu hỏi là tại sao mình không thể biến phin thành một dụng cụ được phổ biến rộng rãi trên thế giới. Và cho nên là bản thân mình cũng rất là thích phin và mình sẽ tìm mọi cách để mình có thể đẩy nó lên, làm nổi bật nó lên, là đính kèm Arabica Việt Nam thì cũng nên đi với phin của Việt Nam, hoặc là cái văn hóa thưởng thức cà phê sữa đá theo kiểu của người Việt. Thì mình nghĩ cái đó là cái giá trị mình muốn mang lại.
Since the 19th century, coffee drinking has been popular among the French in Vietnam. The coffee filter has been used in Vietnam since then and has gradually become more than a coffee extract tool. It's now a special feature of Vietnamese coffee culture. The creative combination of Arabica coffee, which is preferred around the world when using Vietnamese coffee filters, has created a new way of drinking coffee.
Đối với cái cà phê Arabica phân khúc specialty á, thì em có thể thấy được rõ mùi và vị trong mỗi ly cà phê. Cái điều đó thì đối với cà phê truyền thống thì mình khó có thể cảm nhận được. Ví dụ như là cái mùi của táo xanh, các cái mùi rất là đặc biệt. Còn vị á, thì các cái vị cơ bản như là mặn, chua, ngọt, đắng mình có thể cảm nhận rất là rõ qua ly cà phê specialty.
For Vietnamese coffee, often is really dark and bold and bitter and strong at the same time. For this, is the way it's being brewed and presented is it's just different. It's actually, I think it's try to emphasize the textures and the flavor of the coffee itself. For me, if I drink coffee a few times a day, having a cup of coffee warm and not too strong, have a bit of flavor and aromatic is better.
Ý tưởng Arabica của mình bắt đầu từ những chuyến đi học ở châu Âu. Khi mình sang châu Âu thì họ phục vụ những cà phê Arabica, nó mang nhiều hương vị cà phê khác nhau. Nó khác hẳn những gì mà mình được uống ở trong nước. Khi về Việt Nam thì mình mới gặp nhiều người về cà phê, họ nói rằng là Việt Nam có Arabica cũng rất là ngon. Chính vì mình nhận thấy rằng là đó là cái mà hầu như là thời điểm đó gần chưa ai phát triển. Thì mình mong muốn làm một điều gì đó khác biệt một chút để có thể là cho thế giới hoặc là những bạn bè mình mới biết được rằng là Việt Nam mình có những giống Arabica rất là ngon và có chất lượng.
Iced coffee has been a popular drink among Vietnamese people for a long time, but iced coffee using Arabica coffee beans is considered quite new in the F&B market in Vietnam. Vietnam's F&B market is also considered very diverse due to the integration of the world's culinary culture. Businesses in this industry without breakthroughs are difficult to compete because consumers' demands and quality requirements are always changing.
What about innovation, Justin? Is it important for F&B?
I personally think so, but my comments come from maybe the five-star upper segments. I think innovation's key in that segment because trends around the world in food and beverage change rapidly. And unless you're constantly evaluating, re-evaluating, reimagining, then your concept becomes dated very fast if you're not doing that. So I think innovation's key, and innovation doesn't have to be or cost millions of dollars. It can be the smallest gimmick. It can be the smallest service offering that people really remember. There's many examples in this city about restaurants doing that very, very well, these small little gimmicks that make it memorable. So innovation is not just about design, it's not just about concept, but it's also about service. It's also about how you get people talking about you, word of mouth marketing. These things matter, and I think it's very important to keep ahead of those, understand your customer sentiment, look at consumer trends in Asia and Vietnam, and keep ahead of the curve with just those little adjustments all the time. Yeah.
So bottom line is, the F&B industry in Vietnam is still growing, as you both agree. But is it a good, still attractive place for startup in this industry?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any expectation or forecast for the next year?
Under COVID, it's very hard to say, but I think if you look at what the analysts are saying, that the country will return to some type of 6-7% GDP growth next year. The food and beverage industry is expected to be slightly above that from everything that I've read, maybe at around 8%. Yeah, so I think that speaks for itself. Yeah, the industry is moving faster than the country, which provides not only startup opportunity, but it also provides an opportunity to consolidate, particularly due to COVID, reevaluate supply chains, reevaluate rent structures, reevaluate cost structures, and that'll only make the food and beverage industry stronger, in my opinion.
Right. I think for long term, not only for next year, for long term, I think F&B in Vietnam is a very strong position because of the people demand, and Vietnamese people love to go eating and drinking. So yeah, I hope there will be a lot of homegrown chain restaurant, not the franchise from the overseas, because a lot of franchise from overseas is very struggling in Vietnam actually. One of the reasons franchising fee, but the second reason is basically it's totally different market, because a lot of a famous restaurant chain is actually grew up in a developed country, especially US or some other country, right? But Vietnam is totally unique market. And Vietnam has such a very great Vietnamese food, right? Vietnamese food is actually very, very popular all over the world. So I think in the Vietnamese food sector, I think there will be a new Vietnamese food chain restaurant it's already appearing recently, but I think it's gonna be more.
As we see a lot of domestic or international investor investing in F&B in Vietnam. So how do we promote F&B in Vietnam or Vietnamese food to other countries?
Well, I think Vietnamese food almost promotes itself. It's what Taku was saying is it's very well recognised already because of its fresh produce nature, and the simplicity of how Vietnamese food is put together speaks for itself. I mean, all the top chefs in the world that I've ever spoken to always say, do two things and do them well in food and beverage space. Find the freshest of produce possible and prepare it as simply as possible and let the food speak for itself. And I think that's what Vietnamese cuisine does.
Well, once again, thank you for joining our program today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Through the discussion, we can see some solutions to help F&B businesses recover and develop, in which the capital adjustment is the most important factor. This is also a great opportunity for F&B businesses to change their operating models and introduce innovative elements. And that's it for this edition of BizLine. To rewatch our program, you can visit our website at vtv4.vtv.vn or our mobile app VTV Go. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.